I thought my husband had a secret family, until I found out I was the other woman. I found out my husband had another wife because a 6-year-old girl answered his phone and called him dad. I wish I could say I immediately understood what was happening. I didn't. For the first few seconds, I honestly thought I had dialed the wrong number. Then the little girl said my husband's name, and everything I thought I knew about my marriage started falling apart. I'm 32 and my husband, or the man I believed was my husband, is 38. I'll call him Ryan. We had been together for almost 5 years and married for 3. At least that's what I thought. Ryan worked as a regional sales manager for a medical equipment company. His job required him to travel several times a month, usually for 2 or 3 nights. When we first started dating, I actually liked that he traveled. I had always been independent and I enjoyed having time to myself. When he was home, he was attentive. He cooked dinner. He remembered little things. He brought me coffee in bed on Sundays. He texted me every morning when he traveled and called me every night before he went to sleep. He was the kind of man who made you feel safe without making a big show of it. That was one of the reasons I married him. Looking back, I think safety was the illusion he worked hardest to create. There were signs. Of course there were signs. There are always signs. But when you love someone, you don't see the signs as pieces of one terrible truth. You explain them individually. His phone was always locked because it contained confidential work information. He didn't use social media because he valued his privacy. He couldn't add me to his company health insurance because his employer charged too much for spouses. He preferred separate bank accounts because his parents had fought about money. He didn't invite many people to our wedding because he had a difficult relationship with his family. Every explanation sounded reasonable on its own. Together, they should have terrified me. Our wedding was small. My parents were there, along with my sister, a few friends, and several people from my office. Ryan had 3 guests. His college roommate, a coworker named Marcus, and an older woman he introduced as his Aunt Linda. His parents were supposedly living overseas. His younger brother was apparently recovering from surgery. I remember asking whether we should postpone so his family could attend. Ryan said no. He told me his parents had never approved of anything he did, and he didn't want them ruining the happiest day of his life. I felt protective of him. I thought his family had failed him. Now I'm not even sure those people existed. For 3 years our marriage seemed normal. Not perfect, but normal. We argued about dishes. We debated where to go for Christmas. We talked about buying a bigger house. We had even started discussing children. That was when things began to change. Ryan had always said he wanted kids someday. But whenever I tried to make someday more specific, he became distant. First, he said we needed to be more financially secure. Then he said he might get promoted and have to travel more. Then he said our apartment was too small. There was always a reason to wait. Last year, I told him I didn't want to keep postponing our lives. I was 31. I didn't need a baby immediately, but I wanted to know whether we were moving in the same direction. He held my hand and said, "I promise you we are." 3 weeks later, he suggested we start looking at houses. Felt like progress. Now I realize it was probably a distraction. The first truly strange thing happened about 4 months before I discovered everything. Ryan was in the shower when his phone lit up on the nightstand. The preview showed a message from someone saved as M. Said, "She keeps asking when you're coming home." That sentence made me uncomfortable but not immediately suspicious. Ryan had mentioned that Marcus's mother was sick. I assumed the message might be related to her. When he came out of the bathroom, I asked who M was. He glanced at the phone and said, "Marcus. Who keeps asking when you're coming home?" He barely hesitated. His mom. She gets confused sometimes. I accepted it. I even felt guilty for wondering. A few weeks later, Ryan left for what he said was a conference in Denver. First night, he called me from his hotel. We spoke for 10 minutes. I could hear a television playing in the background. Then I heard a child laughing. Not faintly through a wall. Close. Very close. I asked him about it. He said the hotel walls were thin. Then a woman's voice called something I couldn't understand. Ryan immediately said he had to go because his boss was calling. Again, I accepted it. But after that, I started noticing patterns. Ryan's work trips almost always happened from Thursday to Sunday. He never traveled on major holidays, but he was frequently gone the weekends before or after them. He hated when I made surprise plans. If I suggested joining him on a trip, he always had a reason it wouldn't work. Company wasn't paying for spouses. His schedule would be too packed. He would be staying near an industrial area with nothing to do. Once, I offered to pay for my own flight and spend the day sightseeing. He became unusually irritated. "This isn't a vacation," he said. "I need to focus." I backed off. That weekend, he brought me a necklace as an apology. It was always like that. Every time I got close to asking the right question, he gave me something that made me feel bad for doubting him. The call from the little girl happened on a Friday afternoon. Ryan was supposedly meeting with clients in another state. I had received some important paperwork regarding the house we were considering, and I needed him to confirm a financial detail. Called twice. No answer. About an hour later, I called again. Someone picked up. First, there was only background noise. Cartoon. A dog barking. Then a small voice said, "Hello?" I smiled automatically. "Hi. Is Ryan there?" The girl didn't answer for a second. Then she shouted, "Daddy! A lady is calling you." My entire body went cold. I heard movement. A woman said, "Who are you talking to?" Then the call ended. I stared at my phone. I called again immediately. It went straight to voicemail. 30 seconds later, Ryan texted me. "In a meeting. Everything okay? Asterisk asterisk." I typed. "A little girl just answered your phone and called you daddy." Typing bubbles appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then he called me. He sounded annoyed rather than frightened. "What are you talking about?" "I called you." A child answered. "You must have called the wrong number. I called your contact. You answered from this number 5 minutes later." There was a pause. Then he laughed. Not naturally. It was the kind of laugh people use when they want you to feel foolish. Oh, that was probably Jeremy's daughter. "Who is Jeremy?" "One of the clients." "Why did his daughter have your phone?" "We're meeting at his house." She grabbed it from the table. "And called you daddy?" She probably thought it was her dad's phone. The explanation was possible. Not convincing, but possible. Then I remembered the woman's voice. Who was the woman? Jeremy's wife. "Why did you tell me you were in a meeting?" "I am in a meeting." "At someone's house with cartoons playing?" He sighed. "I don't understand why you're interrogating me." That sentence changed the conversation. Suddenly, I wasn't asking a reasonable question. I was accusing him. He said I was stressed about the house. He said I had been suspicious lately. He reminded me that his job paid most of our expenses. By the end of the call, I was apologizing. But this time, the explanation didn't settle inside me. Something felt wrong. That evening, I searched the phone number online. Nothing useful came up. Then I checked our shared tablet. Ryan and I rarely used it, but it was connected to the same account as his phone for app purchases. I searched the browser history. Most of it had been deleted. But one recent search remained. Family activities in Cedar Falls this weekend. Cedar Falls was less than 2 hours from our home. Ryan had told me he was in Denver. I took a screenshot. Then I searched his email. I know snooping is wrong. I'm not going to defend it. But by that point, I felt like I was being lied to inside my own marriage. His main email was logged out. A second account was still open. I had never seen it before. The inbox contained mostly advertisements. Hardware stores. Children's clothing. A local grocery chain in Cedar Falls. Then I found an electronic receipt from a restaurant. Dinner for 4. 2 adult meals. 2 children's meals. The receipt was from the previous Thursday. Ryan had told me he ate alone at his hotel. I felt sick. I kept searching. There were receipts for a family museum, a children's dentist, a furniture store. Then I found a confirmation for a photo session. The Mitchell family holiday portrait package. Mitchell wasn't our last name. At least it wasn't mine. The appointment had taken place 2 months earlier. There was a link to view the photos. It required a password. I tried birthdays, our anniversary, Ryan's usual passwords. Nothing worked. Then I typed the word family. The gallery opened. The first picture showed Ryan standing beside a woman I had never seen before. She looked around his age, maybe slightly older than me. She had dark hair and was wearing a green dress. 2 children stood in front of them. A boy who looked about 10. And the same little girl I had heard on the phone. Ryan's hands rested on their shoulders. Everyone was smiling. There were dozens of pictures. Ryan kissing the woman's cheek. Ryan lifting the little girl in the air. Ryan and the boy wearing matching sweaters. A picture of all four of them holding a sign that said, "The Mitchells, together is our favorite place to be." I didn't cry. Not yet. I think my brain refused to process it. I kept scrolling as though the next picture might somehow explain the others. Then I saw a close-up of the woman's left hand. She was wearing a wedding ring, the same style as mine. I called my sister. She came over immediately. When I showed her the photos, she covered her mouth. "Oh my God. I think he has another family." She looked at me carefully. "Do you know where they live?" I didn't. But the gallery contained location details for the photographer. The studio was in Cedar Falls. My sister wanted me to call the police. I told her I didn't even know whether a crime had been committed. Maybe Ryan and the woman were divorced. Maybe those were old photographs. Maybe the children belonged to someone else. I was still searching for an explanation that didn't destroy my life. My sister said, "Then let's find out." The next morning, we drove to Cedar Falls. Ryan believed I was spending the weekend with my parents. We started with the address listed on one of the furniture delivery receipts. It led us to a 2-story blue house on a quiet street. There was a bicycle on the lawn, a basketball hoop over the garage, a silver SUV parked in the driveway. Ryan's company car was beside it. My sister reached for my hand. Neither of us spoke. We parked several houses away. About 20 minutes later, the front door opened. The little girl ran outside. Ryan followed her. He was wearing jeans and a gray sweatshirt I had bought him for his birthday. The woman from the photographs walked out behind him. She handed Ryan a travel mug. He kissed her. Not on the cheek. On the mouth. It wasn't a hesitant kiss. It was familiar. Routine. Kind of kiss married people exchange without thinking. I opened the car door. My sister grabbed my arm. "Wait. I need to talk to him. Not like this. I'm his wife." She looked at the house. Then back at me. What if she thinks she is too? That stopped me. For the first time, I considered that the other woman might not know about me. Until then, I had viewed her as part of the betrayal. But watching her wave goodbye as Ryan loaded the children into the SUV, she didn't look like someone hiding an affair. She looked like a wife saying goodbye to her husband. We followed them. They drove to a soccer field. Ryan sat with the woman on the sidelines while the boy played. The little girl climbed into his lap. He cheered. Carried snacks. He spoke with other parents. This wasn't a secret girlfriend he visited occasionally. This was his life. And he looked completely at home in it. My sister took pictures from the car. I hated her for doing it, even though I had asked her to come. Seeing the evidence preserved made everything feel permanent. After the game, the family went home. We waited until Ryan drove away alone later that afternoon. Then I walked to the blue house and knocked. My sister stayed in the car. The woman answered. Close, she looked tired but friendly. "Hi." For a moment, I couldn't speak. Then I said, "My name is Claire. I need to talk to you about Ryan." Her expression changed immediately. Not confusion. Recognition. She knew my name. She opened the door wider but didn't invite me in. "What happened? You know who I am?" She stared at me. "You're Ryan's coworker." I almost laughed. "Is that what he told you?" Her face became guarded. "Who are you?" I held up my phone and showed her a photo from my wedding. Ryan and me standing beneath an arch. His hand around my waist. My wedding ring visible. The woman looked at the picture for a long time. Then she whispered, "No. I'm his wife." She shook her head. "No. I'm his wife." The little girl appeared behind her. "Mom." The woman turned quickly. "Go upstairs, Sophie." "But..." "Now." When the girl was gone, the woman stepped outside and closed the door behind her. Her name was Natalie. She and Ryan had been married for 12 years. The boy, Ethan, was Ryan's biological son. Sophie was their daughter. They had never separated. They had never filed for divorce. Ryan traveled frequently for work, just as he had told me. Except his trips weren't always for work. Half of the time, he was staying with me. Natalie believed Ryan had an apartment near his company's regional office. That apartment was our home. I showed her pictures. Our wedding. Vacations. Christmas mornings. Kitchen renovation Ryan and I completed together. Natalie leaned against the porch railing as though she might fall. "He married you?" Yes. He can't have. He did. But we're legally married. That was when the truth shifted. Until that moment, I believed Ryan had created two marriages. One real and one secret. I assumed I was the real wife because I had a certificate, a ceremony, photographs, a shared address. But Natalie had all of those things too. And hers came first. I wasn't the wife who discovered a second family. I was the second family. I was the other woman. I had spent 3 years unknowingly helping a married man cheat on his wife. Natalie invited me inside after that. We sat at her kitchen table. There were family photos everywhere. Ryan holding Ethan as a newborn. Ryan and Natalie at the beach. Ryan teaching Sophie to ride a bike. The oldest picture was dated 15 years earlier. Ryan had met me 10 years into their relationship. Natalie asked how we met. I told her. At a charity event through my job. He said he was divorced. He claimed his ex-wife had cheated and moved away. Natalie laughed bitterly. He told me you were a junior salesperson who had become obsessed with him. My stomach turned. He told you about me? Not exactly. He said a woman from work kept texting him and didn't understand boundaries. He showed me your messages once. What messages? The ones where you said you missed him. Ryan had taken affectionate messages from his girlfriend and presented them to his wife as evidence that a coworker was harassing him. Every part of his story had been planned. I asked Natalie whether she knew Marcus. She did. Marcus wasn't Ryan's coworker. He was Natalie's cousin. According to her, Ryan and Marcus barely tolerated each other. The man at my wedding had been introduced to me as Ryan's college roommate. I showed Natalie a photograph. She didn't recognize him. Neither did she recognize Aunt Linda. The coworker, the aunt, the distant parents, the sick brother, they may all have been hired or persuaded to play roles. The officiant had been recommended by Ryan. The venue had handled the paperwork. At least I thought it had. Natalie asked to see my marriage certificate. I had a photograph saved in my email. She studied it. Then she pointed to the county seal. That isn't the seal for this county. I told her the wedding had taken place in a neighboring county. She searched the seal online. Still didn't match. That was when I started crying. Not because Ryan had another wife. Not because I had been the other woman. I cried because I realized I might never have been married at all. The ceremony was real to me. The vows were real to me. But legally, it may have been nothing more than an elaborate performance. Natalie cried too. For a while, we sat across from each other, two strangers connected by the same liar. Eventually, she asked, "What do we do now?" I didn't know. Part of me wanted to confront him immediately. Natalie refused. "He'll lie," she said. "And if he knows we've spoken, he'll start destroying evidence." She was right. So we made a plan. We exchanged every document we had. Bank statements, travel dates, receipts, photographs, messages. When we placed the timelines side by side, the scale of Ryan's deception became clear. He had organized his life down to the hour. He told Natalie he had client dinners when he was with me. He told me he was at conferences when he was attending his son's school events. He sometimes left my apartment at 5 in the morning and arrived at Natalie's house in time to make breakfast. He celebrated 2 anniversaries, 2 Christmases, 2 birthdays for himself. One year, he told me his flight had been canceled on Christmas Eve. He spent Christmas morning with Natalie and the children, then drove to me that afternoon carrying gifts and complaining about the airport. He wasn't improvising. He had built a system. But the financial documents revealed something even stranger. Ryan wasn't only maintaining 2 relationships. He was stealing from both of us. Natalie believed they had a retirement account containing almost $180,000. The most recent statement she had seen was over a year old. When she logged in, the balance was less than $20,000. Ryan had handled their investments. Meanwhile, I had transferred $45,000 from my savings into what I believed was our house deposit account. That account was nearly empty too. The mortgage broker Ryan had introduced me to stopped returning my calls. The house we were supposedly planning to buy had never been under contract. Ryan had created fake emails and documents to make me believe the purchase was progressing. We contacted an attorney the next morning. She told us not to confront him. She also told me something I wasn't prepared to hear. My marriage certificate was fraudulent. There was no record of our marriage with the county. The officiant's license number belonged to a minister who had died 2 years before our wedding. My wedding had been staged. The venue was real. The guests were real. The vows were real. But the marriage itself did not legally exist. Ryan had never been my husband. Our attorney advised us to contact the police because of the forged documents and missing money. Investigators became involved quietly. They asked us to behave normally. For 2 weeks, Natalie and I continued living separate lives. Ryan came home to me on Sunday night. He kissed my forehead and asked whether I had enjoyed visiting my parents. I said yes. He unpacked his bag. I noticed a handmade bracelet in the side pocket. Colored beads spelled the word Dad. He saw me looking at it and zipped the pocket closed. Client's daughter made it, he said. I smiled. How sweet. That night, he slept beside me. I stayed awake staring at the ceiling. I kept thinking about Natalie. How many nights had she done the same thing? How many times had Ryan come home smelling like my perfume and told her it came from a hotel lobby? I also thought about Sophie answering the phone. A child had exposed him by accident. If she hadn't picked up, I might have spent years trying to build a future with a man who had already stolen my past. 3 days later, Ryan told me he needed to attend an emergency meeting in Chicago. He told Natalie he was traveling to Dallas. The police believed he was preparing to leave the country. A large transfer had been made from one of his business accounts. His passport was missing from Natalie's safe. He had also purchased a one-way ticket to Costa Rica under his legal name. That was another revelation. Ryan wasn't actually Ryan. His legal first name was Christopher. Ryan was his middle name. He used Christopher with Natalie and Ryan with me. Even his name had been divided between us. The police arrested him at the airport. He was carrying 2 phones, more than $30,000 in cash, and identification documents belonging to another man. The investigation uncovered more than Natalie and I ever expected. Ryan had not created only 2 lives. There had been at least one other woman. Her name was Amanda. She lived in another state and believed she had been engaged to him 2 years earlier. He convinced her to invest $70,000 in a company that didn't exist. When she became suspicious, he claimed his mother had died and disappeared. There may have been others. The medical equipment company was real, but Ryan had been fired almost a year earlier for misusing client funds. He continued pretending to work there because his travel schedule helped maintain his lies. The money supporting his lifestyle came from Natalie, from me, from Amanda, and possibly from other women investigators hadn't identified yet. The most painful discovery involved my wedding. The 3 guests on Ryan's side weren't family or friends. The man pretending to be Marcus had been paid. Aunt Linda was the mother of one of his former co-workers. The third person was someone Ryan knew from a bar. He had constructed an entire room full of fake relationships so my real family wouldn't notice that no one actually knew him. During questioning, Ryan denied everything. He claimed Natalie and I were conspiring against him because we were jealous. He said the missing money had been lost through investments. He insisted the forged marriage certificate had been created without his knowledge. Then his attorney presented a different story. According to them, Ryan suffered from a psychological condition that caused him to compartmentalize his life. It was insulting. This wasn't confusion. It was logistics. He maintained calendars, fake email accounts, separate phones, duplicate wardrobes, different versions of his childhood. He remembered exactly which lies belonged to which woman. The worst part was that Ryan tried to contact me from jail. His first letter began, "Claire, what we had was real, even if the paperwork wasn't." I tore it in half. Then I taped it back together and gave it to the prosecutor as evidence. Natalie received a similar letter. He told her I had manipulated him. He told me Natalie had emotionally abused him. Even after everything collapsed, he was still trying to keep us separated. It didn't work. Natalie and I became friends. Not immediately. First, being around her was painful. Every detail of her life reminded me that mine had been built on top of hers. I felt guilty whenever I looked at her children. I had celebrated weekends with their father while they believed he was working. I had complained when he missed dinner, not knowing he was attending Ethan's school play. Natalie never blamed me. She said, "You didn't know." But knowing that intellectually didn't erase the shame. Therapy helped. So did anger. There is something strangely healing about becoming furious after spending months blaming yourself. I wasn't stupid. Natalie wasn't stupid. Amanda wasn't stupid. We had been targeted by someone who spent years learning how to exploit trust. Ryan eventually pleaded guilty to multiple counts involving fraud, forgery, theft, and identity-related crimes. I won't share the exact sentence because the case received some local attention and I want to protect the children. But he will be gone for a long time. We recovered some of the money, though not all of it. Natalie sold the blue house because she couldn't stand living in a place where every room held a memory she no longer trusted. She and the kids moved closer to her sister. I moved too. The apartment Ryan and I shared never felt like mine again. Every object became evidence. Couch we chose together. The coffee mugs from our fake honeymoon. The framed wedding photo from a marriage that never existed. I kept the photo for a while. Not because I missed him. Because I needed proof that I hadn't imagined the entire thing. Eventually, I threw it away. A few months ago, Sophie turned 7. Natalie invited me to her birthday party. I almost didn't go. I worried my presence would always represent something painful. But Natalie insisted. Sophie didn't know the full story. She only knew that her father had lied and hurt people. At the party, she handed me a slice of cake and asked whether I remembered talking to her on the phone. I said yes. She smiled. Mom says that's how we found you. I had to step outside for a minute after that. 'Cause she was right. I thought that phone call had destroyed my life. In reality, it saved what was left of it. I used to tell people I discovered my husband had a secret family. That isn't technically true. He didn't have a secret family. We were the secret. I was the woman hidden behind business trips, fake conferences, and locked phones. I was the person his real wife had been taught to dismiss as an obsessed coworker. For a long time, being the other woman made me feel dirty, even though I had never knowingly agreed to that role. But I understand something now. The shame belongs to the person who lied, not the people who believed him. Ryan stole my money. He forged my marriage. He manipulated my family. He wasted years of my life. But he didn't get to keep my future. And the woman I once expected to hate became the person who helped me rebuild it. Sometimes Natalie and I joke that we went through the world's worst divorce together. Neither of us finds it funny for very long. But we're getting there. As for dating, I haven't tried again yet. People ask whether I'll ever trust someone after this. Honestly, I don't know. I hope so. But the next time a man tells me he doesn't use social media, has no close family, travels every weekend, refuses to combine finances, and can't add me to his health insurance, I'm not going to call him mysterious. I'm going to run a background check.